Good afternoon, Tony Dattino. I am the founder and the chairman of the USA Memory Championship. Let me get the light on that. Should have done that sooner. And we are in the process of running our 24th Memory Championship. We have 12 finalists that were selected in July that are going to compete for who has got the best memory in the United States. And we are off and running. Now, what do we have? We have the first event is usually the list of words. We have a Lumosity game that starts with the seating, and so where they get to sit, and we'll play that along. And then we'll have the word game, words to remember. They'll get 15 minutes to remember words. And then we'll have the long-term memory, the tea party, and the infamous 2 decks of shuffle cards. And off we go. But what was interesting about yesterday was that we sent the information out on the long-term memory event. And people want to know, well, what's that all about? Well, when we were starting the competition at MIT, one of the deans of the science area asked how we could prove to people that skills are applicable to long-term as well as just short-term memory events. So at that point in time, we created a long-term event meeting. We would give the mental athletes 30 days to study, in that time it was about 3,500 pieces of information, and they would take 30 days to study that information. We'd put them on stage and we'd then ask questions, and we'd jumble up those questions and jumble them up and mix them with different components of different parts of it. And it turned out to be a fabulous event. It was just one of the winners of the day. Everybody in the audience, of over 400 people, were questioning, how did we do that? What did we do? How did these people remember this stuff? It was almost like a Jeopardy game, except we gave them the answers, and now we gave them the answers to study, and now we put the questions in front of them. Well, the information for the 24th event went out yesterday, and the categories are into 3 flavors. The first flavor we have are the state senators. And what's interesting about that is, okay, so we know about state senators. Well, what information do we want people to remember about the state? And so we dig into the archives and we look for, obviously, the year they were elected, possibly their birthday. We look for what state they obviously represent and what party. And then some interesting information on, well, what did they do before they became a senator? So that's some of the information now that the mental athletes have been given, and they have 30 days to retain that information as it relates to state senators. Now, you may start off in the first round, and you may just start with a simple question for each of the mental athletes, and they'll be sitting on stage, and we'll put a question up that may be, what year were they elected to the Senate, and what party do they represent? We may come back later and say, which senators were elected and came into office in 2018? Now, name 3. Now, again, maybe there were only 7 of them that came in that year, and they'll have to go through 7 and then just give us 3. So as the event goes on, the challenges get to be a little bit more difficult. And that's what we want to know about our senators. And wouldn't it be nice to know what senators, what state they were from, and how long have they served, or maybe how old they were. And so that's the first bit of information that we sent out, along with 2 other categories. How about Grammy winners? Best songs. Who sang it? Who wrote it? What year was it the Grammy winner? And so they've got information on Grammy winners. And the information, again, we could talk about, well, who wrote and sang the song that they wrote? What year, in 1975, who was the writer of that year's best song? Later on, we may say in 1960, who was the writer, what was the song? Eventually, we may ask, well, who's the writer, who wrote the song, and who sang it? And so as the competition moves through the rounds, the questions go from a simple, give me 1 data bit, to give me 2 data bits, to give me 3 data bits. And then we may ask some commonalities. Who was the only person that had won the Grammys twice. What years? So it's interesting in terms of how we take the questions now. So we give people the information, but now how do you comprehend that is the skill. How do you put it into long-term memory so that you have to demonstrate comprehension and it's just not a matter of just snapping off a data bit, one for one. So that's one of our favorite events in showing people that we can give our mental athletes a couple of thousand pieces of information, but how we ask the questions to pull that data back out really makes the event very, very interesting. And the last event that we've given the mental athletes time to study are our Medal of Honor winners, military, Army, Navy, Marine. Who were the Medal of Honor winners or the recipients for their service to our country? And again, that's a very interesting amount of information when you start saying who were the men and women that have served our country and what year did they receive a Medal of Honor? What medal did they receive? What branch of the military were they in? What did they do that they helped receive it? And so that got them to being nominated and receiving it. So that's the three events that we have. We worked this year to minimize the number of data bits so that we were not during the month of September, especially for our school students starting school in the month of early September, maybe late August. We didn't want to take them away from their study habits and give them the 3,500 bits that we did up at MIT. In fact, we didn't even want to give them the 2,500 data bits. So we've tried to cull that back to a little bit less than 2,000 so that they're not having to dedicate their lives to just preparing for the 24th USA Memory Championship. And also it gives them a chance to demonstrate their capabilities when they chose to enter the competition, and they then were able to study this information. Now the key is how we put the questions back out to them and how they take the questions and demonstrate comprehension. Not just, okay, I have this fact, but to demonstrate that they can cross the different elements of the information for the Medal of Honor winners or the Grammy winners or the different categories that we have given them in terms of the parts of it, and that they can demonstrate that they can mix that and actually comprehend it well to give out answers to the different questions that we asked. So that went out yesterday, and hopefully they've all received it. That's the first thing we always like to make sure is everybody get it at the same time, at the same Excel spreadsheets and things, and then now they'll come in and we level the playing field, so everybody goes through what we call Category 1 questions. Everybody will go through Category 2 questions in the same category, and we're trying to be very fair and then no longer mixing the categories. So if you get one, everybody's going to get the same category of information. So for all athletes, I just saw a note here from Tracy Miller, and boy, does he make a great point. And Tracy, I'll cover that. So Tracy Miller, one of our mental athletes, I think it would be wonderful for athletes if the long-term memory event first, so that all athletes have a chance to show their month-long efforts. And we talked about that, which is I think why we moved it to second, but now I got to think about why we left words. Tracy, I will take your suggestion back. It seems, I can't speak for the team, so I sometimes get voted out, but it does seem to make a lot of sense. So we used, so here's his point, right? They got a month to study all this information, and if they don't advance past the first round, they've wasted their time studying and demonstrating their brilliance to the audience if they didn't get a chance to get into the second round, which is when we usually do long-term memory. So we have our next team meeting on Monday, and I will bring Tracy's suggestion to the table. But in any case, it's always, to me, they are the stars of the show. These are men and women that have demonstrated to themselves, and we now demonstrated to the people that listen to the broadcast of the event, that anyone can improve their memory, given the desire to do so and the belief that you can. And I always say memory is a verb, not a noun. And so given that desire, they went out and studied, and they put their effort into learning memory systems or techniques, mnemonics, as some people will define them, and had then chosen to be so brave to put their brain on display in a competition. And when I say that, I get that from years of experience in working in this event in New York City, where I used to say on television, I could get people in New York City to get on a stage and be naked faster than asking them to put their brain on display in a memory competition. And so I think that the men and women that have entered the competition are already winners in the game of life, and those that come to a final that are willing to broadcast their display of mental acuity to a world are the heroes of cognitive fitness, mental capacity, in demonstrating to people who are so desperately worrying about their memories and dementia and impairment, but doing that and letting people see what they're able to do and accomplish as normal, everyday people that give everybody the opportunity to learn how they can improve their memory. That's my Wednesday broadcast, and I shall be back with you on Friday. So have a good week. We're at the middle of it. I'm still watching Little League World Series games. I always dreamt of being in one myself, but never quite made it out of the state levels. And I just love watching these kids play Little League baseball every August. So have a good week, and I'm going back to the Little League World Series.